guys, welcome to episode 11 of In the Virtual Garden with Mrs. Bowers. Have you ever heard the old saying, one bad apple spoils the bunch? Maybe, maybe not. Have you ever heard of the hack of how to ripen green bananas using a paper bag and some overly ripe bananas? So today's episode, we're going to be kind of investigating whether this hack actually works, and also to see if we can support that statement with some evidence of one bad apple spoiling an entire bunch of apples. So today what we're going to be focusing in on is a plant hormone, not auxin like we did in previous episodes, but a plant hormone called ethylene. So ethylene is a very important plant hormone. It actually is a hormone that is one that will regulate plant growth and development. It specifically will trigger the production of a chemical called ethylene gas, which allows plants to ripen, specifically the fruits of the plants to ripen. It will cause the skin of the fruits to soften, so their texture will start to soften. It will allow their color to become more vibrant. So in the case of bananas, the green coloring will start to fade away and they will turn into more of that typical banana, that nice yellow banana color. Another thing that this ethylene gas will do is it will cause the production of sugar, an excess amount of sugar, so it will cause those fruits to start to ripen. Now, in the case of what scientists have shown and research has shown is that this ethylene gas, which is produced by this ethylene hormone, this will occur in certain types of fruit, such as apples, bananas, peaches, mangoes, pears, and tomatoes, because now we know tomatoes are definitely a fruit considering they're carrying seeds, but doesn't work as well on things like grapes, pineapples, and many different types of berries. So for today's episode, we are going to be setting up an experiment, and then you're going to be able to see the results of the experiment over time. So we're going to be using some ripe bananas, a plain lunch bag, paper lunch bag, and some overly ripe bananas. So what you're going to be doing is we're going to set up two parts of the experiment. Our experimental group, which will have 3 bananas that will go into the bag. Okay, so you're going to take your 3 bananas, separate them, and you're going to place them into the bag along with the overly ripe bananas. So those are going to go right in. And then you're going to close it up and keep it away from your other group. So that first group is our experimental group. It will have those overly ripe bananas in the bag together. On the other side, our control group is going to have just the 3 bananas sitting out on a plate away from our experimental group. And we're going to check in on it every day to see that overly ripe bananas that should be producing that ethylene gas trapped in the paper bag, if it actually affects the rate at which these bananas will ripen. Okay, guys, so for this assignment, what I'm going to need you to do first in your Google form is to answer the question, what is ethylene? And if you need to rewind a little bit, you can do that and pause to answer. So go ahead and do that now. Pause. Okay, guys, so now is the time for you to make some observations about our experiment. Starting with day 0, which is the day that we set up the experiment, you want to take a look at what those bananas look like on the very first day. And then each day after that, take a close look at how the bananas have changed, comparing the experimental group that had the overly ripe bananas in the paper bag with it and the control group that did not have any ripe bananas near it and was not in the paper bag. Yep, sorry about that. Looks like my family got into the control group and took one of the bananas. But still, we'll carry on. Okay, and if you need to go back at any time to notice any changes, that's fine. But now you want to make sure that you go into your Google form and write down any observations that you notice about the changes in our bananas, in the control, and the experimental groups. All right, guys. So you've hopefully taken a close look at those bananas and noticed some changes. And this is the portion of the assignment where you're going to pause and write your explanation as to what you've noticed and what you've seen and why you think it's happening. So you want to look and say, did those overly ripe bananas actually have an effect on how quickly or the rate at which those bananas ripened? So you're comparing that experimental group that had those ripe bananas in the bag with it versus our control group that did not have those overly ripe bananas. That ethylene gas, that ethylene, the hormone that causes that gas to be produced, that causes those fruits to ripen, is definitely something you should include in your explanation. One thing to note, that scientists and farmers, those who are producing fruits, have used this idea and the way that ethylene gas works to their advantage. They will harvest fruits prior to them ripening so that they can ripen them when they think it's necessary, like right before they go to stores. So they will use ethylene gas and they will pump it into warehouses. They'll put it into trucks so that those vegetables or fruits will not ripen until they get to the store. So really interesting that they can harvest the ideas of science to help with industry and the economy. So thinking back to our first question, does one bad apple spoil the bunch? Or in our case, a few rotten bananas spoil the bunch? I can't wait to hear your answers. Bye, guys.